Sam Darling, tonight I'm going to share my thoughts on All-Star Weekend. Are the Houston Rockets being too hyped? And the Houston Texans letting go of Brian Cushing, and a couple of other big stories in sports. I'm going to start with the All-Star Weekend. What a weekend, and what a disaster it was for the NBA. And why was it a disaster? Well, first of all, the All-Star introductions took forever to get through, and it took forever to start the game. Fergie's national anthem was a national disaster. And the game itself, it started off, they tried to put defense into the All-Star game. They tried to make it count for something. But at the end of the day, the crowd was just absolutely lifeless. And then it ended up being it ended up scoring over 140 points, both teams did. So, and even then, it was like, there was really nothing going on from either side. And it was an all-around nightmare. The dunk contest was boring. The three-point shootout, the whole All-Star Weekend is just boring in itself. And I think, to me, the NBA has tried so many different ways to make it more appealing and more interesting. But the reality is, it's just a boring weekend. And I watched a couple minutes of the dunk contest and I was done. Watched a minute of the 3-point contest again. It's just a snooze fest. There's nothing going on. And the All-Star game was not really... I mean, it was cool to see them put defense into the game. It was cool to have, fantasy drafts. But, I mean... But at the end of the day, you can't say, oh, they're going to play defense. They're going to do this. And then, at the end of the day, they still scored over 140 points. I mean, yeah, they're great players, the best of the best. But, my goodness, it was just... And like I said, the crowd was lifeless. There was no entertainment. It was in Los Angeles, one of the biggest cities in the United States, and the NBA just flat out flopped. And one of the big stories from the All-Star Weekend, when everybody gets together and chats, like all the media outlets, they talk about what's going on in the first half of the season and to kind of digest what went on and discuss what can happen in the second half of the year. And everybody's been talking about the Houston Rockets, the Houston Rockets are the number one seed. They're the best record in the NBA. And they're flat out shattering records offensively. Of course, they have Mike D'Antoni as their coach. But are they being too hyped? Meaning, are they really a team? And this was brought up during the All-Star game. I remember Marv Albert saying nobody's going to beat the Golden State Warriors. One, because it's a 7-game series. Two, a playoff series, and I do agree with them. In a playoff series, you've got 2 weeks to dissect your opponent, learn everything about them, and make adjustments. And that's what differs Houston from Golden State. I think Golden State has a better coaching staff. I think Mike D'Antoni. We've seen this rodeo from Mike D'Antoni in Phoenix. Great record. It doesn't mean anything. They have two great regular season. They're one of the greatest regular season coaches in D'Antoni, and one of the greatest regular season stars in James Harden. Yeah, they got two playmakers, but you see, I've seen James Harden in the playoffs. The guy himself he's a totally different player in the playoffs. He's not even close to the playmaker he was in the regular season. And maybe you can attribute that to no help, too many minutes, whatever you want. The bottom line is he's not been to the NBA Finals since leaving Oklahoma City. The closest he got was when he was teamed up with Dwight Howard, and Kevin McHale was the coach, and the Rockets lost in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. The bottom line is, we've seen this too much. I've seen this too much from Harden. I've seen this too much from D'Antoni. Chris Paul's never been to the Western Conference Finals. I like the Rockets roster. They can match up with the Warriors to a T defensively, and they've got enough firepower offensively. They got the system to essentially go toe-to-toe with the Warriors. The Golden State Warriors have been to the Finals 3 straight years. You're talking about a guy that's never been to the Conference Finals of Chris Paul. A guy that's has choked numerously times in the postseason. James Harden, including last year's massive collapse against the San Antonio Spurs in Game 6. And you're talking about the coach who's choked so many times in the playoffs, Mike D'Antoni, and has never beat Greg Popovich in the playoffs. Luckily for D'Antoni, he's not in Popovich's bracket, and you never know what could happen in March and April. This isn't why I don't think Houston, and quite frankly, I don't think Cleveland's going to come out the East. I don't. I know LeBron's a great player, but when you're dissecting the teams, when you're in the playoffs, you have to know everything about them and make adjustments. And when I look at Houston, yeah, they got 2 playmakers in Chris Paul and James Harden. They got the system to do it, but they really are. What the Rockets are is, if they don't make their threes, They kind of got the mid-range shot. They're tougher defensively now. I mean, that's the difference between this year's Rockets and last year's Rockets. Last year's Rockets were a typical D'Antoni team, but until D'Antoni really does something more, like take a team to the finals, and it's going to be tough. I mean, Golden State's really the biggest hurdle in the West. The West is tough. I mean, you got Oklahoma City, who I think is built for the playoffs. San Antonio is just really coasting until the season is over, and of course they're a different team in March and April. And then, I mean, you got those young teams like the Timberwolves and Denver. Portland is solid. I mean, those teams, I mean, they're not going to beat Houston, but they could give Houston a run for their money. You also have to remember how good Houston was last year. Houston was very good. They won 56 games. They won over 50 games. They got past, they barely got past the Oklahoma City Thunder. Remember, they were trailing in 3 of the 4 games that they won. Enter the fourth quarter against the Thunder in the first round. But they beat the Thunder in 5 games. And, of course, they lost to the San Antonio Spurs in epic proportion at home in Game 6. And the Spurs without Kawhi Leonard, Tony Parker. And it's just, I mean, the Spurs were not as deep as they are now. And they are a very good team. And they're still the Spurs. They're not a team you can count out of anything, and they still got the best coach of all time at Popovich, and they're just waiting for the regular season to end. It's the same thing as the Warriors. The Warriors aren't entertaining this 1 seed, 2 seed type talk. They're just trying to get to the postseason because they know they're going to club whoever they play in the first round and the second round, and they're probably going to get either the Rockets or the Thunder or the Spurs. That being said, I think the Rockets will be too hyped. They're very good. They're talented at almost every position. They can match the Warriors to a T defensively. But until I've seen D'Antoni really do something in a playoff series that really just makes me go, wow, he's turned a corner, he's still the same D'Antoni. He's going to have a great regular season, and in the playoffs, he's either going to lose to Popovich, or he's going to avoid Popovich, finally get to the conference finals. I would say finally because he did get to the conference finals with the Suns, but lost to, guess who? Greg Popovich. He's never been to the finals. So you're talking about a coach that's never been to the finals, a point guard that's never been to the conference finals like Chris Paul, and a shooting guard, James Harden, that since leaving Oklahoma City has not been to the finals and has lost in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals. You're talking about just too many variables to not believe in the Rockets. The Rockets, I think the Rockets, like I said, the Rockets are really good. They're very tough. They're very defensively. But until you see this in the playoffs, I can't buy them. It's like what Shaq said about the Raptors. They do just about everything right in the regular season. But in the playoffs, they fold like lawn chairs. So until Houston does it in the postseason, I'm not buying the hype of the Rockets. And same thing with the Cavaliers. While the roster is much better and much more athletic, you have to understand in a 7-game series. Remember, 7-game series with the same opponent. I mean, against the Brad Stevens coach team. Brad Stevens is a better coach than Tyronn Lue. I know LeBron's a great player, but one guy cannot win a playoff series by himself. He can make it interesting. But I think Boston, I know they've had their rough stretches, but they're certainly battle-tested and probably more postseason ready. And they'll probably beat the Cavaliers in 6 or 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, but that will be to be determined. Moving on to the NFL, the Houston Texans moved on from Brian Cushing. That's not a surprise. What is a big surprise is the timing. They don't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick, and they just let go of one of the all-time leading tacklers in that franchise history. Well, and quite frankly, I didn't see much from the linebacking group last year from Houston to really justify this move. I know Cushing has lost a step. I know he's been busted for PEDs. But at the end of the day, if you could get him to take a pay cut, it could still alleviate your cap, and you still get to keep a veteran guy that knows the ins and outs of the NFL, who can help those young linebackers. And like I said, the Texans aren't exactly loaded at that position. Like I said, they don't have a first or second round pick. This is not great timing. They could have asked him to take a pay cut. I'm sure he would have done it. But they didn't, and they released him. And so that does save up about $7 million in cap space. They are trying to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. They don't, like I said, I'm beating a dead horse here, but they don't have a first-round pick because they traded up Deshaun Watson, which is a great idea because they got a young quarterback with potential to be great and could take them to the next level and finally win a Super Bowl. But they also don't have a second round pick because they begged the Browns to take Brock Osweiler's monstrous contract. So the Texans really, they're paper thin defensively, in the linebacking and the secondary, and they're paper thin up front offensive line. They're going to have to go pretty big at free agency and work some magic in the draft to try and reshape this roster to try and get back into title contention. But they are in better cap shape than a couple of than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who went to the AFC title game and are in their division. So they got the leg up there. Kirk Cousins is a free agent. The teams interested: the Jaguars, the Broncos, and the Arizona Cardinals could be interested. The thing is, I don't see Kirk Cousins being an upgrade over Bortles. I certainly don't see him really putting Denver back in the Super Bowl. He's not an elite level quarterback. I've seen him joke in the last game of the season when the Redskins needed a win to get into the playoffs a year ago, and then of course last year when they needed to win out just to give themselves a chance at the playoffs against the Dallas Cowboys, who were not in the mix, who were in the mix, but really not in the mix, if you know what I mean. And he blew it, and they almost got destroyed on national TV. He's got a good arm talent. I think Denver's better off just drafting a guy. And if you look at the history of teams that have had success, they've drafted their quarterback. Look at the Texans. They finally drafted a quarterback. Colts, Luck, drafted. Peyton Manning, drafted. Breeze is kind of the exception, but everybody's hoping for that Breeze type situation where if somebody doesn't want a quarterback and you stumble on a great one. That's not often the case. And for Kirk Cousins, he's a solid quarterback, but I just don't see him being an upgrade over anybody maybe Denver, but I thought Simeon was pretty solid. So going forward, the quarterback market is, after Jimmy Garoppolo's monster contract, he can get any kind of money. So we'll see what happens. Today, Jarvis Landry was tagged by the Dolphins. I don't see, he tweeted after the Super Bowl, I want to experience this feeling. He's never really going to experience that feeling with the Dolphins. And to me, if you're a free agent wide receiver, you need to go to a team with a quarterback. Why? Because one, you're going to get, your talent's going to be a full display. And two, you're going to go to a team that has a shot of winning. At the end of the day in the NFL, if you have a quarterback, a good to elite level quarterback, you've got a shot to win. And to me, Jarvis Landry is a very talented receiver, but Miami, Ryan Tannehill is okay, and then that's it. They don't have a quarterback, and they're not a title contending team. And you kind of saw what happened when they go to JHI. He went to Philadelphia and was a big part of them winning the Super Bowl. So it's not like Jarvis wouldn't get. Jarvis legitimately got some good offers out there. I know the Broncos have been shopping around Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, and they've also been trying to move on from Aqib Talib. So really, going back to the Kirk Cousins thing, is that really a good fit for the Broncos, considering the fact they've been trying to move some of the key veteran pieces? So, and in the NCAA, the Louisville Cardinals have to forfeit their 2013 championship. I don't get why they punished the kids in this situation. I get it. They were busted. They broke the rules, but why are you punishing a group of young men who worked their absolute tails off, won a championship, and because of somebody else's dumb decisions, they got to pay for it? I feel sorry for the players. This is not the outcome that I know that they were wanting. So that's a disappointing part of the NCAA coming down hard on the program. So, but yeah, the All-Star Weekend was a bit of a disaster in my opinion. The Rockets, I'm not buying the hype, and we'll see what happens in the second half of the season. Hopefully, the playoffs is where it all starts with the Rockets, and Brian Cushing got released. We'll see. March is free agency month for the NFL, so sports is heating up. Baseball's back. The Astros began full team workouts. And their first spring training game is against the Washington Nationals on the 23rd. This has been Sam Darley. Thank you for watching.